Good evening. Tonight I wanted to talk to you about the hoops, the hollers, the calls, the samurai chatter, tree knocks. There's a lot of various sounds that Bigfoot has been known to make and people report. As you can see here in this totem pole carving with Mr. Tom Seawood there, he's an absolutely fascinating Bigfoot researcher. If you don't know who Tom Seawood is, you need to check him out. He brings a Native American perspective to the whole Bigfoot mystery that's quite fascinating. But as you can see on the totem here of Azunaqua, which is the wild woman of the woods, their Bigfoot, is that the lips are pursed together. And you see a lot of imagery of their lips pursed together, pushed together, like they're making a whoo whoo, like a hooing noise, and whoops and collars. And they do a lot of this different noises for different reasons. Now, none of us really has a Bigfoot. None of us has a pet one. None of us has one with a tracking collar that we're studying and spending hours documenting their behavior. But we can look at a lot of primate behavior. We can look at a lot of gorillas and chimpanzees and howler monkeys. And we can also look at a lot of anecdotal evidence from people who've had habituation sites, who've had them on their property, and a lot of encounters from people who aren't necessarily in this, who have described things. And a lot of other researchers who have looked into this, like Ron Moorhead's Sierra Sounds are a good candidate. And we can look at some of the work from linguistical experts and primatologists who have deciphered some of the things that these creatures make. And we can just apply some common sense and some reasoning and have an idea, I will say, with a little bit of certainty, a hypothesis, if you will, and nice, good, educated guesses at why they make some of these noises and some of these sounds. And we could be off, we could be completely wrong about a few things, but it's nice to talk about, and it's good to kind of share the ideas for new people about some of the things that are going around. So the first thing I wanted to talk to you guys about is one of the most obvious ones, and that's tree knocking. So for tree knocking, there are many reasons why they do this. Hunting behavior, signaling behavior, in certain situations where a whoop or a holler or an animal impression would draw too much attention. I think it's kind of a covert way for them to make kind of a somewhat innocuous sound in the woods, and a good way to locate each other a lot of times. And that's kind of the context that I've heard them personally, is that being on the property or out in the woods, I'd hear a knock way off in the distance up on the right-hand side, somewhere up on a hill, a couple hundred yards away, I'd hear a knock. Then the crickets and frogs and birds would go quiet. And then from the other side, a few seconds later, I'd hear another knock from the other side. And to me, that was a couple of Bigfoot saying, hey, I'm over here. Hey, I'm over here. Or it's kind of a signal. Sometimes if a human goes hiking into the woods, like, hey, they would send out a knock from a watcher or a scout saying to the other ones, hey, there's humans out there, and they might knock back saying, okay, yeah, we heard you, and also be used a way to locate each other. It's also a hunting behavior, like I said, when they wouldn't want to use hoops or hollers to possibly scare away a deer or whatever prey they're after. They can use knocks to say, hey, I'm up the trail, or hey, I'm down the trail, or that you can flush them towards me as a hunting behavior and general communication. The also thing that's been reported is that they would sometimes take logs and knock them against hollow trees. There's been reports of them hitting a tree really hard and then putting their ear against it. And then people have actually witnessed this. Bigfoots hit a tree really hard, knock, and then they put their ear against the tree. And they do this at several trees till they find something like a possum or a raccoon or birds or something in there, and they'll knock the tree over or tear the tree apart and get to whatever animal's living inside. So like I said, there's a few reasons why that they do knocks. It's signaling. It's just some kind of it's a non-verbal way to communicate something. And I think from clan to clan, from different areas, different regions, and from different circumstances, it can mean different things. But those are generally some of the reasons why they do the tree knocking or wood knocking. And for the record, I also don't think it's a good idea to tree knock back or to try to trick them. You might, if you knock on a tree and you get a knock response, you might get them once. They might think that was a buddy, or you might get them to knock or reply once. But once you do that, generally, you've alerted them to your presence. They're probably not going to holler or do anything else. They're probably just going to watch you and go into stealth mode. So if you're trying to look for Bigfoot, I don't recommend you knock. Or you could even upset them if you disrupt them in a hunting pattern, and you might be the hunted. one of the things that's heard a lot and can be a little ambiguous, whether it's a bird or another human or something, is they make lots of hoops and hollers and short little noises and strange clucks and clicks. And if you look at a lot of the primate families, they pretty much all do it. You look at any kind of monkey species or great ape species, primate species like chimpanzees and bonobos, and even gorillas, and lots of gorilla noises and jumping and thumping on their chest. I think a lot of these are communications. They're trying to work themselves up sometimes. I think a lot of times they're trying to signal to somebody else. They're trying to alert the clan something else is going on. I think if you hear a lot of these, there's probably going to be quite a few of them around. You might be surrounded. And I think they're kind of working their way up. Nonverbal communication, once again, where they're verbalizing, but they're not communicating as far as like language and spoken words. It's kind of just drawing attention, kind of the human equivalent of shouting or yelling or just making noises, or like at baseball games and people just cheer and shout and aren't really saying anything in particular. I think it's a lot of the same things going on. They get themselves worked up. They get the attentions of the other ones. They get each other worked up. It's a little more mysterious why they make a lot of these noises, but hoops and hollers. And I think maybe if you hear a knock and then you hear a hoop, it's these things calling back and forth. Hey, there's a human in the woods, or hey, there's a deer coming down a trail, or, there could be various reasons why they're making a lot of these hoops and holler noises, but it is a very common thing that people report, as opposed to like a long drawn out howl or other language or the samurai chatter and some of the other stuff we're going to talk about. One of the more famous vocalizations Bigfoot is known for are screams and howls. Long, deep, sonorous howls, high-pitched screams, or a howl that goes into a roar, or a roar that goes into a scream and changes pitch. There's a few reasons why they do this. It's been surmised is that I think one of them is very obviously long-distance communication. They don't have cell phones. A tree knock might hear, or if they've made a kill, or if I think a group or a family group, if most of them go out hunting and they're separated from each other, they can use these long howls, the same reason that wolves and coyotes do. It can be heard for miles around, and the big, long, lonely howls, Bigfoot does do it, but I think it's kind of rare because it obviously draws a lot of attention. I think it might be a family group is out, or they were supposed to return back and they hadn't. I think it's the same reason. They could be trying to call each other, trying to locate. Somebody was supposed to be back, or they've made a kill, or there's a problem, or they're lonely and they're trying to call to somebody else out there, or they're lost maybe and they're trying to call. Some of the other screams and roars that people hear, definitely a lot of people report like roars going into a scream as like a challenge. Gorillas and chimpanzees and a lot of other apes and bears and tigers and a lot of species do a big deep roar or a lot of guttural growl as like a challenge or as a warning of, look how big I am, look how loud I am, you don't want to mess with me. And Bigfoot's no different. I think you can imagine something 8 or 9, 10 feet tall, upwards of 1,000 pounds. The amount of volume and pressure that these things could push out in a roar is incredibly intimidating. So I think it'd also be used as a challenge, long distance communication, loneliness. There are various reasons. I think that the screams might be younger ones, or in different situations. Maybe also in pain. They're a physical creature. Maybe they can exhibit pain and they're howling out. Maybe one's giving birth and it's painful, or they eaten something bad, or they have an injury and they're trying to deal with it, or they're trying to call another one over in an emergency. So sometimes loud screams, the same reason why humans scream and other animals make loud noises. Well, the other thing that's very common, especially in habituation sites or in areas where there seems to be more than one of these creatures, is people describe as samurai chatter. It's a real deep, guttural, fast talk. If you ever watched like an old Japanese movie, like a Zatoichi movie or something in it, very fast, really fast, deep, kind of Japanese sounding, almost like Russian, very fast talk. A lot of people report in the woods and they hear these strange voices in the woods where it sounds like humans talking, but in a foreign language. It'd be very fast, very chattery, and they'll hear a couple different tones of them going back and forth. And essentially, Look at Ron Moorhead's work, and what a lot of other people surmise is that this is their language. It's some kind of a language. I'm sure if you took a Sasquatch from the East Coast and dropped him in the West Coast, or took a Texas one and dropped him in the Northwest, they'd have no idea how to communicate with each other. I'm sure there's also regional variants of it, and different phrases and different things that they say mean different things to different groups even. But it's one of the things that is reported is this kind of low samurai chatter. We'll see if I can get a clip and play it for you here at the end, and I'll play some howls, and I'll play some stuff at the end to explain what I'm talking about. The samurai chatter basically has just been described as their language, their way of talking back and forth. And it's actually quite fascinating when people hear it, and a lot of people have heard it, like I said, in habituation sites or areas where they're known to frequent, or probably near one of their camps or where a clan lives. And especially in the Sierras, I think the type 1s, the big patty types tend to do these more. And I think some of the other varieties, the ones that, the type 2s, the more chimpanzee varieties, I think tend to do more whoops and hollers and, you know, monkey type sounds I think you're used to hearing. The other thing that Bigfoot is famous for is their mimics and their bird calls. Not only mimicking different birds and different forest sounds, like I said, the 800-pound owl thing. When I experienced the 800-pound owl, as people describe, just think of like you're out in the woods, all of a sudden you hear whoo, whoo, but it sounds like if there was literally an 800-pound owl. Like no owl is that big or that deep, or it sounds like a really large human mimicking, and like a really good mimic of an owl, but not quite. A lot of people report them mimicking other birds and other chatters and other howls and coyotes, even fox cries. But where it sounds about 80 or 90%, like if someone, like if a human practiced the call all their life and they did really, really good, but you can kind of tell it's not quite the real thing. A lot of people report that. But when I experienced the 800-pound owl, it was at night. A friend of mine stepped out on the porch and he's like, dude, there's a huge owl out here making this huge hooing noise. And what I think it was is I think there were Sasquatches watching us. I think there were multiple of them because we hadn't been up in a long time. And I think when my friend stepped outside, the Bigfoot was not expecting that. So it was like, oh shit, hoo, you know, like hoot twice like a barn owl, they're coming. Like it was kind of their way of like, okay, everybody back off, hide behind a tree, stand down. The humans are coming outside. And I think they can I think they can use it that way. I also think they use them just as kind of a generic, they're bored. Sometimes I think these things screw with us. One of the other mimicking things that's really quite creeping and disturbing is a lot of people report like they live out in the country or something, they let their dogs out every day, and say their dog's name's Sally. They let their dog out, the dog runs around, sniffs, kind of does their business, and all right, Sally, come back, Sally. And they'll call their dog back or something like that. Or if a husband's working in the yard, come on, Bill, time for dinner. And then the dog will be gone, or the dog will be in the house, or Bill will be gone, he'll be out of town, and the wife will hear somebody in the bushes go, come here, Bill, in almost the same tone. Or Bill himself will hear his voice being called into the bushes, like, come here, Bill, come into the bushes. Really creepy stuff, like they're going to try to ambush him or attack him, or at the very least, they're just screwing with them. And it's very creepy stuff where people report that they had a dog for years, or the dog dies, or the dog's out of town. And they hear, come on, Sally, come here, calling into the bushes like they're trying to call the dog or the human. Very creepy stuff. If you hear your name in a very similar tone to your wife, and you know your wife's out of town, and you hear her calling into the bushes, it's a safe bet to say don't go into bushes. Probably go inside and get a gun. But yeah, a lot of that's been attributed to Bigfoot and their behaviors, and I think it's a hunting behavior, and I also think part of it is maybe just to kind of screw with us, and I think that they get bored, and I think we're great entertainment for them. So I think that has a lot to do with some of the sounds and some of the things they do, and kind of the same reason why they look in windows and why they mimic animals and mimic our tones. And there's been reports of Bigfoots that live near train tracks mimicking train whistles and cars starting. Like, why is there a train whistle in the middle of the woods kind of a thing? The same reason why birds in the city, like mockingbirds, will mimic like cars starting up and car horns and school bells and stuff. I think they're pretty much the same way. They kind of mimic sounds they hear, and I think they kind of use that in their own communications and for their own devices. Who knows? But again, very creepy stuff. So I wanted to play some various sounds for you guys. See if I can find some samples here. The Ohio howl, obviously. Some said it was coyotes making it, and they've debunked it, but I doubt that. I've heard similar sounds, and no coyote, I've heard lots of coyotes, has the volume, the deepness of what the Ohio howl is. I'll also try to find you some samurai chatter here, and maybe some other hoops and hollers, and I'll maybe throw my voice in there a little bit and let you know what you're listening to. So let's jump into it. So up next we have some samples of samurai chatter from the Sierra Sounds. These same sounds have been recorded all over the country, sounding very similar. It's kind of a fast, choppy language. This is from 1974, Ron Moorhead Sierra Sounds on a tape recorder, copied over many times and then cut up and yet again on this recording. So it's a little hard to hear. I'm going to go ahead and turn the volume up so you guys can get an idea of what they're talking about with samurai chatter. So I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and please leave a comment what you think. And please subscribe if you haven't already. I'm always learning, always continue to learn. As I learn more about Bigfoot sounds and behavior, more than happy to make videos and pass it on to you guys. Just know that they make a lot of strange noises. There's a lot of strange noises that are already in the woods from different birds and things, but Bigfoot's known to mimic them. City sounds in the middle of the woods, all sorts of strange, crazy stuff like we've talked about. So if you hear something odd in the woods and you feel like you're being watched, one of these things could be out there. Anyway, stay safe in the woods, folks, and God bless. If you'd like to follow me on social media, you can find me at unstellar.com. You can also find me at twitter.com at realmattsquatch. This is where I post notifications for new videos outside of YouTube. And I'm also on Instagram. I post other random pictures here too, and sometimes some stuff about Bigfoot as well. And you can always email me at mattsquatchpresents@gmail.com.